The most dangerous cage you will ever inhabit is not built by your enemies. It is forged by your own potential. Look around you. Society speaks of potential as a virtue, a gift, a promise. They tell you it is the engine of success. But this is the first, most corrosive lie you must recognize. Potential is nothing more than unclaimed debt. It is a shadow of what you could be, cast across the comfortable mediocrity of what you are. It is a ghost that haunts the ambitious who are too lazy to act. You clicked on this video because you feel that haunting. You are brilliant, you are strategic, you are hungry for more. Yet there is an invisible barrier, a profound inertia that keeps your blueprint locked in your mind. Every day, you betray the person you know you should be, and every night, that ambitious ghost whispers its judgment. You believe you lack discipline. You believe you lack willpower. I am here to tell you that you lack none of these things. You simply lack the ruthless strategy required to convert the energy of that potential debt into a lethal kinetic force. We are not going to talk about morning routines or visualization. We are going to conduct an autopsy on self-sabotage, examining the cold, dark levers of human psychology that can be used not just on others, but on the self to compel action through strategic necessity. We will learn how to weaponize your inertia. We will learn how to make the pain of not acting exponentially greater than the pain of effort. This is the alchemy of ambition, a forbidden masterclass in self-control through self-manipulation, a journey into the psychology of command. But before we can command the self, we must understand the battlefield. And the battlefield is littered with the corpses of good intentions. Why does the intelligent, ambitious mind choose the path of least resistance? It is not a moral failing, it is a chemical imperative. Your brain, in its infinite wisdom and crippling efficiency, is an energy conservation unit first and a thinking machine second. It operates on a simple, ancient algorithm: minimize threat, maximize caloric efficiency. Laziness or inertia is the default setting of the survival mechanism. Any high-effort, uncertain endeavor, building a business, writing a magnum opus, mastering a complex skill is registered not as an opportunity for reward, but as a high-risk, high-cost expenditure. The moment you conceive of the arduous task, the 100-page report, the 6 months of rigorous training, the terrifying cold call, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, activates. It is signaling a threat energy depletion, potential social rejection, uncertainty. These are ancient survival concerns. The default reaction is not to fight the threat, but to mediate it, to find the path of guaranteed safety and minimal energy investment. This mediation leads to the desperate search for toll-free pleasure. This is where the modern world traps us, the immediate, predictable, low-effort dopamine hit. The scroll, the notification, the immediate gratification of a minor task. These minor hits, while seemingly harmless, are functionally anti-ambition. They train your neurochemistry to prioritize the small, guaranteed reward over the massive, distant one. The dopamine surge from clearing your email inbox or endlessly refreshing a social feed is immediate, certain, and requires zero emotional risk. The dopamine surge from completing a year-long project is distant, uncertain, and requires maximum risk. Your brain, choosing survival, will always choose the guaranteed hit of the minor task. It will mask procrastination as pseudo-productivity. This is the psychological anchor. You are ambitious, but your system is wired for survival, not dominance. The fundamental cold truth is this: your brain is not designed to make you successful. It is designed to keep you safe and alive. Success requires a deliberate, strategic override of this ancient programming. If this insight, that your own brain is conspiring against your greatest ambition, has opened your eyes to the true nature of your struggle, I ask you to take a moment and hit the like button. This is not a gesture for my ego. This is a subtle declaration to the algorithms, and more importantly, to your own subconscious, that you are not afraid of the truth, that you seek knowledge that discomfits. Hit like and let the algorithm know you're ready for the deeper, darker lessons on how to wage war against your own neurochemistry. When ambition and inertia clash repeatedly, when the ambitious idea is repeatedly murdered by the lazy act, a dangerous psychological mechanism takes root known as learned helplessness. First coined and studied by Seligman in the 1960s, this phenomenon describes the psychological state of an individual who has suffered a series of adverse or aversive stimuli. In this context, failed attempts at self-discipline, and subsequently feels unable to control or change the outcome, even when opportunities for control are presented. The experimental subjects, be they animals or human, learn that effort is uncorrelated with relief. Therefore, they stop exerting effort altogether, even when the escape route is finally visible. For the lazy mind, the cycle works like this, creating an emotional scar of ineffectuality. 1. Stimulus: high ambition, high value project. I will launch this product. 2. Attempt: short, disorganized burst efforts, 2 hours of work. 3. Failure due to complexity, lack of structure, or distraction. Procrastination takes over. By 4. Inertia: retreat to comfort, pseudo productivity. 5. Cognitive conclusion: the shadow is for me. I am the kind of person who tries and fails. My ambition is a beautiful theory, but my action is a weak reality. This conclusion is the shadow of potential. According to Jungian analysis, the shadow is the repressed, unacknowledged aspect of the personality, the part of the self that you disown. For the ambitious yet lazy individual, the shadow is not some dark, hidden cruelty. It is the weak, unreliable self, the one who talks but never does. It is the repository of every failed resolution, every abandoned notebook, every cancelled subscription. The ambitious self, the ego, constantly tries to hide this shadow. It does this by seeking pseudo-productivity, doing small, easy, non-essential tasks to feel busy, or by engaging in elaborate planning rituals that never lead to execution. This is the deeper, more painful truth: you don't lack motivation, you are addicted to the comfort of the plan, not the cruelty of the execution. The plan is a flawless idea. The execution exposes you to the real possibility of mediocre results or failure, which shatters the narcissistic self-image of the genius you believe you are. The inertia is not resisting effort, it is resisting vulnerability. To break this cycle, you must stop attempting to motivate the self and begin attempting to manipulate the self. You must apply the dark triad principles, Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy, not externally, upon rivals, but internally, upon the lazy self. We will focus now on narcissism. The classic narcissist requires external validation and maintains an inflated, grand image of themselves. This is usually seen as a debilitating flaw, a weakness that makes one easily manipulable. But we can weaponize this need for grandiosity. The narcissistic contract. Your ambition is inextricably tied to your self-image. Your ego depends on the perception of future success. The strategy here is to create an irrevocable, public contract that makes failure not merely a private disappointment, but a public humiliation that compromises your core self-image. Rule of irreversibilities. Tell the specific group of people whose judgment you value most, your rivals, your skeptical peers, your most critical audience, that you will accomplish a difficult, time-bound goal. The goal must be specific, visible, and have a non-negotiable deadline. The shame anchor: you are ambitious, you loathe being seen as a failure, or worse, a fraud. By tethering your task to your narcissistic need for external respect, you shift the primary driver of action from internal desire, which is weak against comfort, to external shame avoidance, which is an immensely powerful primitive force. The drive is no longer, I want to succeed. That is too soft. The drive becomes, I must act, or face the public exposure of my own lack of competence and the collapse of the perceived reality of my own greatness. You are essentially leveraging your vanity to overcome your sloth. The fear of being exposed as the weak self, the shadow, becomes the only fuel that burns hotter than your desire for comfort. This is pure, cold strategy applied inward, using a flaw to create a strength. This is the point where most people become uncomfortable. We are replacing gentle self-help with strategic self-cruelty. It begs the question, comment your take. Would you use this tactic of public shame to force yourself to act, or would you find a softer defense? Drop a brain emoji in the comments if you're learning something new about how your own mind works. Let me know if the idea of weaponizing your vanity feels right, or if it triggers a moral defense. Your reflection is part of the lesson. The famous Milgram experiment demonstrated that people are willing to inflict pain on others simply because an authority figure commanded it. The subjects, though uncomfortable, deferred moral responsibility to the man in the lab coat. The overwhelming takeaway was not that humans are inherently cruel, but that humans possess a powerful, primal tendency towards compliance when they believe they have successfully deferred responsibility to a legitimate authority. The subjects could say, I was just following orders. This offers a crucial lesson for our battle against inertia. You are stuck because the authority figure in your life is you, and you are far too lenient. You allow yourself to negotiate, delay, and ultimately retreat. You are too close to the source of power to be subject to it. You must externalize and formalize the authority figure that commands your work. You must create a psychological mechanism where you feel compelled to comply, even when the subject, your lazy self, resists. 1. The uniform. Create a strict, non-negotiable ritual around your work. This is the uniform of your inner authority. A specific time, a specific desk, a specific opening ceremony. When you enter this lab, your role changes from ambitious dreamer to compliant subject of the authority. The physical act initiates the psychological transformation. 2. The command. Your work goal must be broken down into commands so simple and procedural that the subject cannot argue with them. Not write the chapter, but open the file. Write 50 words. Do not stop until the count is 50. The action must be micro-managed to eliminate the possibility of large-scale analysis paralysis. 3. The deferral of responsibility, the cognitive bypass. The power of the Milgram setup was the removal of moral agency. You must achieve the same effect, remove the choice. The moment you enter the work ritual, the choice is gone. You are no longer deciding if to work, you are merely executing the immutable order of the authority figure you established yesterday. The lazy self hates being ordered, but it loves not having to choose. It will always choose comfort. By formalizing your routine into a series of non-negotiable commands, you strip the choice away, leaving only compliance. You become a perfectly efficient machine of execution because you have successfully fooled your mind into believing that the painful decision was made by someone else. This is the psychological equivalent of burning your ships. There is no retreat to the comfort of the inner negotiator. There is only the command and the compliance. We have established the psychological weakness of the ambitious mind and the tools to manipulate its shame via narcissism, and the authority command is via Milgram compliance. But these internal levers are often not enough. To truly guarantee dominance over self-sabotage, we must turn to the master of external manipulation, the man who codified power itself, Niccolo Machiavelli. The next section will reveal how the greatest manipulators in history dealt with dissent and how you can apply their brutal wisdom not to conquer a state, but to conquer your own crippling comfort. But what happened next will change how you see self-control forever. Niccolo Machiavelli, in The Prince, did not preach cruelty for its own sake. He codified effectiveness. His central lesson is that great achievements, the founding of a state, the maintenance of power, are never born from goodwill or chance. They are born from necessity. The ambitious man who is lazy lives in a state of soft, perpetual choice. He chooses comfort over worth of the fierce. Decisive energy required for action, because the price of comfort is currently zero. Machiavelli teaches that the prince must be prepared to be necessitated by events. We must manufacture that dark external force and apply it inward. You must treat your own comfortable environment as a hostile territory that works against your state, your ambition. 1. Eliminate the neutral zone. Every buffer between you and the work must be removed or weaponized. If you procrastinate by browsing the web browser is not a neutral tool, it is a rebellious faction in your state. You do not negotiate with rebellion, you eliminate it. This means using cold, hard software locks, disabling notifications, and physically moving the comfortable furniture out of the workspace too. The famine tactic. The prince, facing an indolent populace, sometimes restricts resources to spur productivity. You must impose a resource famine on your lazy self. Restrict the comfort dopamine sources. No food, no phone, no music, no warmth, until the command line from 1.4 is executed. The brain, wired for survival, will quickly learn that the only path back to resource abundance comfort is through work compliance. 3. The swiftness of cruelty. Machiavelli advised that any necessary cruelties must be inflicted swiftly, decisively, and all at once, so that the subject forgets the pain quickly and only remembers the benefit of the new order. Your self-correction must follow this rule. If a day is wasted, the necessary punishments, extra hours, public penance, or enforced abstinence from pleasure must be administered immediately and unflinchingly. Delay in self-cruelty breeds contempt for the inner authority. The ultimate Machiavellian insight applied here is this: the lazy self must fear the ambitious self more than it fears the effort of the work. Your goal is to make the comfortable path feel like a direct, immediate threat to your well-being. If the concept of weaponizing resource famine and applying self-cruelty with Machiavellian swiftness resonates with the dark strategist in you, then you belong here. Hit subscribe now, because the next lesson is about to reveal how the world's most effective conquerors, not just of lands but of self, deal with the descent of the status quo. Don't miss the coming truth that will redefine your relationship with self-control. In The Prince, Machiavelli distinguished between two types of rulers: the hereditary prince who inherits the state and the foreign prince who conquers it. The lazy, ambitious man is the hereditary prince. The state is too familiar, too soft, and the old habits, the old guard, are too entrenched to be overthrown gently. You must, therefore, become the foreign prince. The foreign prince understands that a conquered state must be handled with a calculated brutality designed to extinguish all hope of rebellion. The eradication of the old guard. Your old guard is your established habits, the afternoon slump, the 2-hour doom scroll, the negotiating voice that says, "Just start tomorrow." The foreign prince does not merely change a few laws. He destroys the institutions that supported the old regime. You must create a vacuum of habit. Don't just replace scrolling with reading. Remove the phone entirely from the environment for the defined work period. Make the old habit impossible, not just difficult. The swift and complete change. Machiavelli states that those who innovate will have for enemies all those who prospered under the old order, and only lukewarm defenders in the new. This is your psychological reality. The lazy part of you, the old order, will fight viciously. Your counter-strategy must be overwhelming, swift, and absolute. Do not introduce change gradually. Gradual change allows the old guard to muster its forces. Introduce the new, severe work ritual all at once, the total lockdown, the non-negotiable compliance, to shock the system into submission before it can formulate a coherent counter-argument. Settling the new territory. The prince establishes his dominance by living among the conquered people. You must live in the new ritual. The foreign prince cannot return home. You must enforce the new, disciplined behavior until the lazy self recognizes the new regime as the permanent reality. This requires not just days but weeks of unforgiving, consistent, high-intensity execution until the very architecture of comfort is redefined around the work. The state you conquer is your own mind. And for the ambitious to triumph, the comfortable life it once knew must be rendered impossible. To understand the strategic power of creating necessity, we look to Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was the ultimate foreign prince, constantly conquering not just nations but his own limitations. His most effective tool was not cannon fire, but strategic immolation, the deliberate destruction of any possibility of retreat. Consider the famous campaign planning or the construction of vital infrastructure under duress. Napoleon would often issue deadlines and commitments that seemed impossible, forcing his subordinates and himself into a state of necessity. He understood that genius is often dormant, paralyzed by too many options. By presenting his commanders with a situation where failure meant certain ruin, military disaster, public disgrace, or his own legendary wrath, he stripped away the mental choice to fail. They had no choice but to find the 10x solution, the ingenious bypass, the vert that necessity unlocks, the internal siege. This is the equivalent of Napoleon's famous strategy of laying siege to a city, cutting off all supplies and demanding immediate surrender. You must lay siege to your comfortable self. Cut off the supplies of distraction, entertainment, easy food, social interaction until the self must surrender and work. The bridge of irreversibility. The most poignant lesson is the psychological moment of committing the army to crossing a difficult river or burning the bridge behind them. Once across, the army cannot retreat. It must fight or die. Your task must be crossed like this bridge. The public contract you created in part 1 is your bridge burning. Once you state the goal to your critical audience, you have no choice but to fight the good fight of effort, because retreat means public annihilation. Napoleon's strategy was not about optimism or belief, it was about structural compulsion. He created systems that made high-level performance the only logical path to survival. We must do the same to our lazy, ambitious selves. If the historical parallels of Napoleon and Machiavelli are giving you a cold, calculated clarity on your own inertia, then it's time to act. Comment your take. What specific bridge, habit, or comfort must you burn today to make your goal non-negotiable? Let us know in the comments if you're finally seeing the strategic, rather than moral, nature of self-control. We now arrive at the core of Machiavellianism, applied to self-discipline, the ability to manage the self with cold, immoral calculation, completely detached from sentimentality. The hallmark of the Machiavellian personality is not malice, but strategic ruthlessness and a capacity for long-term planning coupled with emotional detachment. The self as a resource. The Machiavellian does not view his internal drive or emotional state as something to be nurtured. He views his time, his focus, and his energy as resources to be exploited for the grand goal. If a resource is not performing, it is either corrected ruthlessly or discarded. You must adopt this view of your lazy self. It is not you. It is an inefficient asset requiring immediate optimization. The cost-benefit analysis of procrastination. Procrastination is not a mood. It is a strategic choice with an emotional dividend. The dividend is immediate comfort. The Machiavellian must calculate the real long-term cost of this dividend and make it explicit. Calculation. How much money does this hour of scrolling cost in missed opportunities? How much respect does this month of delay cost in public perception? How much time does this distraction cost in health and longevity? The verdict: you must assign a ruthless, unforgiving monetary or social value to every hour of wasted time. This converts the fuzzy feeling of comfort into a hard, painful ledger entry. The power of being feared. Machiavelli asks, is it better to be loved or feared? In internal command, feared. Love as self, compassion leads to negotiation, excuses, and ultimately, failure. Fear, self-consequence leads to compliance, preemptive action, and ruthless efficiency. The lazy self must fear the decisive, punishing consequences that the inner authority from 1.4 will inflict should the commitment waver. It must know that one lapse will lead to immediate, calculated, and disproportionate pain. This is the psychological state of command, the recognition that the ambitious man must be a tyrant over himself first before he can command external success. He must sacrifice the comfort of the moment for the strategic necessity of the future. We have armed ourselves with the narcissistic hook and the Machiavellian lever. We have learned how to create internal fear and external necessity. But what happens when the external environment itself becomes the weapon? The most insidious form of control comes not from a tyrant's boot, but from the power of the group dynamic. The next segment will reveal the frightening lessons of the Stanford prison experiment applied to your work environment, showing you how to turn peer pressure and role-playing into an irresistible force for execution.